Beneath 2 miles of solid ice in a lake that hasn't seen the sun in millions of years, scientists were expecting to find almost nothing, maybe a few tough microbes, the absolute limit of where life could exist. But what their drill pulled up wasn't just mud and water, it was the ghost of an ecosystem, the remains of creatures that had no business being there. This is the story of a discovery that has opened a Pandora's box of questions about the hidden world at the bottom of our planet, and what it means for the search for life far beyond our own. Antarctica. It's the coldest, driest, and highest continent on Earth, a place so extreme, so alien, that we use it as a stand-in for other planets. The surface is a vast, windswept desert of ice, and it looks like it's devoid of all but the most stubborn life. But the real mystery of Antarctica isn't what's on the surface, it's what's buried underneath. Hidden under that colossal ice sheet, which can be up to 3 miles thick in some places, is a world of its own. There are ancient mountain ranges, huge canyons, and, most mysteriously of all, hundreds of lakes. We found nearly 400 of these subglacial lakes completely sealed off from the rest of the planet. Think of them as giant, continent-sized petri dishes that have been isolated for millennia, sometimes millions of years. For decades, these lakes were a source of intense scientific debate. The conditions are just hard to wrap your head around. The pressure from miles of ice above is crushing. The temperature is always at or below freezing, and there is absolutely zero sunlight. A realm of eternal, freezing darkness. Based on everything we knew about life, the scientific consensus was pretty clear. If anything lived in these lakes, it had to be simple. Microscopic, bacteria that could slowly chew on minerals in the rock. The idea of anything more complex, anything you could see with your naked eye, was basically science fiction. To get complex, multicellular life, you need energy. You need a food web, and in a place with no sun, no plants, and no contact with the outside world, building a food web seemed impossible. So when a team of researchers prepared to drill into one of these lost worlds, they were hunting for microbes. They had no idea they were about to rewrite the rules of biology. The mission was monumental. An international team of scientists and engineers set up camp on the massive, featureless plain of the West Antarctic ice sheet. Their target was a subglacial lake called Lake Mercer, buried more than half a mile below them. Drilling through that much ice is tricky. You can't just use a normal oil drill. The fluids and friction would contaminate the pristine environment you came to study. So, they used a custom-built hot water drill, basically a high-tech pressure washer that melts its way down. Every single drop of that water was sterilized, filtered, and blasted with UV light to make sure no surface microbes hitched a ride. They were carving a perfectly clean 30-centimeter wide tunnel into a world that had been sealed for ages. The process was slow. Day after day, the drill melted its way deeper. The team on the surface could only wait and watch their instruments. Then, after days of painstaking work, the sensors gave the signal. They had broken through. They were in. The first step was to send down a camera to see this new world. But the real discoveries wouldn't come from the video feed. They would come from the mud. The plan was to lower a coring device down that long, dark hole and pull up sediment from the lake bed, a sample of a world no one had ever touched. As the first sediment cores came to the surface, the team gathered around. They were expecting to find mud, rock, and, with luck, a few microscopic signs of life. They put the samples under the microscope, and that's when the quiet, focused work of the science tent turned into a moment of pure shock. The mud wasn't just mud. It contained the perfectly preserved carcasses of creatures that simply shouldn't have been there. They found the remains of tiny crustaceans, relatives of shrimp and crabs. They even found tardigrades, the famously indestructible microscopic water bears. It wasn't just a fluke. This was evidence of a complex, thriving ecosystem. The immediate, mind-bending question was, what were they doing there? These weren't fossils from millions of years ago. Carbon dating suggested some of this material was only a few thousand years old. This discovery was, in a word, impossible. It meant that somehow, in the relatively recent past, this isolated lake wasn't so isolated after all. This wasn't even the only breakthrough. In another subglacial environment, Lake Whillans, researchers found it was teeming with living microbes, thousands of different types, forming a bustling, active community. This ecosystem wasn't dead, it was running on chemical energy from the minerals around it, a process called chemosynthesis. It was proof that life could build a food web in total darkness. These discoveries completely upended our understanding. On the one hand, you have lakes with bustling, live microbial ecosystems. On the other, you have the ghostly remains of larger animals in a lake that is currently too nutrient poor to support them. It paints a picture of a dynamic, changing world under the ice. What we once thought was a static, frozen wasteland is actually alive, and it has a history we're only just beginning to uncover. The discovery of these ancient remains wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning. It unlocked a Pandora's box of new possibilities, both thrilling and deeply unsettling. How did those animals get there? Were they living in the lake itself, back when it had more nutrients? Or were they washed in from mountains and rivers that existed before the ice sheet grew to its current size? Scientists now think that these remains were likely transported from the trans-Antarctic mountains, hundreds of kilometers away during warmer periods over the last several thousand years, when the ice sheet was smaller. The implications go far beyond Antarctica. For years, astrobiologists have looked at the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn, like Europa and Enceladus, as top candidates for alien life. These worlds are known to have vast liquid water oceans hidden beneath their icy shells. The biggest question has always been, could life evolve and survive without sunlight? Antarctica has now given us a definitive answer. Yes, and not just survive, but thrive. The subglacial lakes of Antarctica are maybe the best analog we have for the oceans of Europa. The discovery that these environments can host active, complex microbial ecosystems dramatically strengthens the case for finding life there. If entire ecosystems of bacteria can flourish under miles of Antarctic ice, what might be swimming in the dark, geothermally heated oceans of a moon that's been stable for billions of years? The discovery of life beneath the ice was terrifying, not because it was monstrous, but because it revealed the depth of our own ignorance. For all our technology, we had missed a massive dynamic biosphere on our own planet. Antarctica isn't just a frozen desert, it's a continent of life, hidden beneath a veil of ice, and we've barely scratched the surface. Beneath that ice lies one of the longest mountain ranges on Earth, the Transantarctic Mountains, stretching for thousands of kilometers. We now know there are vast networks of rivers and groundwater connecting these hidden environments. We've drilled into maybe 3 or 4 of the nearly 400 known subglacial lakes. The rest are a complete mystery. What else is down there, evolving in isolation? We found microbes. We found the ghosts of crustaceans. The more we look, the more we find. And each discovery pushes the boundaries of what we thought was possible. The truly terrifying thought isn't what scientists found beneath the ice. It's the realization that this vast, hidden world exists, and we have absolutely no idea what secrets it's still keeping. We have opened a single door and found a room filled with the ghosts of life. Now we're faced with a palace of countless unopened doors, and the profound, humbling mystery of what lies behind them. This single discovery has completely changed our understanding of where life can exist on our own planet. It forces us to ask what else might be down there, in the hundreds of other lakes and rivers we have yet to explore. If you find these kinds of paradigm-shifting scientific mysteries as fascinating as we do, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our next exploration into the unknown.